Should richer households be made to pay more for their TV licences? Get your calls in right now. The BBC's Director General, Tim Davie, has said that he's in favour of reforming the licence fee to put an end to grinding cuts at the broadcaster. One of the suggestions would be to charge richer households more than poorer ones for their TV licence. The BBC raised around 3.7 billion quid from the licence fee last year and has increased the charge by £5 to £174.50 in April to keep up with inflation. Do you think having different price points, depending on how much you earn, is a good idea for the licence fee? Dawn, I've always wondered why there isn't a facility to pay more for the BBC if you choose to do that. It's not there.
That's one of the options, isn't it? I mean, the thing is with the means testing idea and getting richer households to pay more is how do you do it? How do you set that system up? It's going to be a very expensive system set up in the first place. And I just do not... And people just say, right, I'm not paying. I mean, very, very few people under the age of 60 watch the BBC in any case at the moment. So I think the younger generations who probably have a higher income are just not going to bother. OK, well, what if we say that younger people maybe don't have higher incomes? It's actually when you get past 55, 60 that you do appreciate the BBC. You start to be at that stage where you do maybe have more disposable income in your life because you maybe have paid off your mortgage, you may be receiving your pension, you may be in a situation where you could pay for the thing that you enjoy the most. Yeah, but I mean, there are so many other options at the moment to watch our TV on that people will just, if they're going to be charged more for it, they simply won't do it. There are other ways to go about this. What about like advertising, for example? Maybe. I mean, the BBC do advertising on some of their channels already, and as we know, they advertise their own programmes. I mean, you can't watch sort of like TV at a certain time on the BBC. Fundamentally undermines the idea of broadcasting without fear or favour. They make consumer programmes on the BBC. I think the BBC have done a fairly good job of undermining their own fear or favour. Well, let's look at adverts. I do consumer journalism, right? How does that work when you have adverts at half-time for a company that you may have just criticised? You maybe have adverts on more the international channels that the BBC do, on radio and things like that. There are ways on their merchandising arm. Maybe do it around that way. There are ways to do it. I just don't think means testing is going to work because, A, how do you set it up? It's too expensive, and B, people just simply won't do it. OK, I mean, we've had the licence fee as it is, a flat fee, a regressive tax, as some people would call it, because... You know, for taxes to it, they should be Prince or pauper, you pay the same. Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, why not? Does it make sense to you, Henry, to charge more as you earn more? I think it does. I mean, if you look at how we tax people's income, the more you earn, so if you earn more than £12,570, you start paying tax. If you earn more than a higher threshold, £50,000, then you're into 40% tax. You earn more than £125,000, into 45%. So that's recognised there. Council tax is supposed, even though it hasn't been reformed for about 35 years, to recognise wealth and the amount of money you have, the value of your house. And when it's properly reformed, it will do so. And I think for essential services, we should try to be progressive as far as possible. And I would say the BBC is broadly an essential service. Now, you might think young people don't really consume it as much as older people do. But if you look at everything from drama to sport to children's TV, CBeebies, to the radio, online, there are so many things that BBC does, not least at great national moments, whether Remembrance Sunday or a royal funeral, Wimbledon, the World Cup, everybody watches it. Yeah, some people watch ITV, and maybe this channel. But it's one of those unifying things about being British, and we should tamper with it at our peril. I think Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, has said that there won't be an income tax effectively on the licence fee. It won't work that way. But surely it's not that difficult to link it in some way and say, look, if you've got households that are in that top tax threshold area, that top tax rate, then they should pay more for the fee. The BBC are going to set up, the BBC was skint as it is, they need to raise more money. So the BBC are going to spend more money setting up a separate department to gauge how much each household is earning. How's that going to work? Well, in the same way that when you live in an area and they introduce, I don't know, resident parking, that
that pays for itself as well, because people then have to pay for the resident
you're
parking.
assuming everybody
You make sure that the costs of admin are more than covered by the cost that you're going to get back from the tax.
So if you're doing it on an area basis, how, are you just going to assume that everybody that lives in that area is of a certain income?
No, you don't. You take their income bracket, and then that's the basis on which you have an ABC.
How is the BBC going to get hold of
I'm not sure if the
everyone's
BBC is
income
really
bracket?
going to administer it. It's going to be linked to HMRC, or it's going to be linked to central taxation somehow. I don't think the BBC is going to have to pay the setup
Well, it would
costs.
have to. The HMRC have got enough on the place as it is.
No, but the HMRC is a huge government organisation which has incredible levels, knows so much about us, knows how much people pay in terms of tax, etc., and it would be linked to a system.
Okay,
AI can do it.
Just to be clear, though, if the revenue that it gained, the extra revenue that it gained, covered the admin costs, Dawn, you'd be in favour?
Probably not. No, I think the BBC has passed its sell-by date, to be honest with you. I think there are other ways of funding it. Maybe increased income generated from the commercial arm, maybe a hybrid licence and paywall situation. And, you know, bearing in mind, people are criminalised for not paying the licence fee.
OK, in extreme circumstances.
I
Let's
think
take some
the BBC is unique because no other organisation in this country, or probably abroad, does as much as the BBC and has done it for as long and as well, which is why we all feel a personal stake, why we all like to kick it like the NHS. We would miss it if it were gone.
Okay,
Look at American TV.
Let's take some calls. Pete's in Lincolnshire. What do you reckon, Pete? If you earn more, you should pay more for your licence fee.
Well, the way we're going, I've never seen a programme yet that's been going that if you're rich, you shouldn't be paying more. So therefore, a millionaire, if he pays more tax and he pays more this and he's paying more for his licence and he's paying more for health insurance and he's paying more for this, that millionaire is now suddenly the same as Joe Soap is. So you've got nothing. And I don't think anybody should be paying for a TV licence anyway, let alone... the other ones.
Why not, Pete? When Henry's argument there is this is an essential service. There are things that we cannot get from other broadcasters that we only get from the BBC.
Well, why should I be buying a TV licence to pay for Radio 1 that I never listen to?
Because...
And you can't say it's there if you want it. My car's sitting outside. So do I charge the government? Say, well, if a government employee wanted to use it, he could have used it because it's there.
Because you use the other services, Pete. And then Radio 1 might make your kids happy, or it might make your nephew happy, but it adds to the general happiness of society, the cohesion of society, which so many people complain about falling apart.
Officially, your BBC TV licence fee, I'm getting BBC 1 and 2 and BBC 3 and 4 from 7 o'clock at night for 5 hours. And officially, that is what my TV licence should be paying for, because that's all I'm getting. Unless I buy more sort of gadgets and everything else for the house to get all these other bits that I can do and get rewind and get
Hang on,
this,
Pete,
that,
can I ask you, do you have a smartphone, Pete?
What's one of them?
Do you have a smartphone? Just a phone?
I've got a mobile phone, yes.
You can get all of the services you were talking about on your phone. Free.
So therefore, if everybody uses the phone, you don't need a TV licence, do you?
No, because
So
it's
how
about the
is the BBC
services.
gonna
Streaming
fund
services
itself?
are now included as well. But Pete, look, I don't have children, right? I love children. I was a child myself. My taxes are
haven't got
going.
children.
My taxes help to fund the education system, even though I don't have children. I don't resent it one little bit, because one day, in about 10, 15, 20 years, a doctor's going to come along. Perhaps they were educated partly through my taxes, and they're going to save my life. That's how society works.
I agree. But trouble is, you haven't got any option whether you're going to pay your taxes or not. I should have an option whether I'm going to pay for 4 channels on a BBC, on a station that I can get about 400 different channels on.
Only the BBC does what we're talking about here. Everything from drama, radio, the fantastic
So does
stuff,
ITV,
Strictly, the
Channel
Olympics,
5,
Wimbledon, everything.
Sky. But if I want Sky, I pay for it. If I want any other channel, so of all the other channels, I pay for it. So why shouldn't I just, if I'm paying for that, then fair enough. But I'm not paying for all the other channels. I'm only paying for 4.
Yeah.
OK.
OK.
Let's move on. Thanks for your call, Pete. Val's in the West Midlands. Val, would you be prepared to pay more if you earned more for the BBC's TV licence? We call TV licence, but of course all those other services are funded by it as well.
I will not, because at the moment I've been hit by the Winterfield payment because I was over the threshold and not entitled to pension credit. And now people like in my sort of financial situation will again be hit by paying the increase for the TV licence. It's so unfair.
How much do you use the BBC, Val? We've lost Val.
Yeah.
OK, we've lost Val. Let's take another call. Patricia's in Greater Manchester. Would you be prepared to pay more for the licence fee, Patricia, if you could afford it, if you were earning more?
No, I couldn't prepared to pay more. I'm really annoyed because you have a house, but you might not be cash rich. So how do they work out whether you're rich or poor?
Well, typically it would be based on your income, not on your wealth. So let's say it's based on what you earn, not on what you own.
Well, we're both pensioners.
OK,
So
and the state pension is your only income.
Yes.
So we're going to say then your income is minimal. You may end up paying less than you are at the moment.
Oh, well, that wouldn't be bad.
I mean, here's the thing, Patricia. Now, I'm fortunate. I have a reasonable income. I enjoy my life and I enjoy the work that we're doing right here. At the moment, the licence fee is about £174 or so. I'd be prepared to pay £200 if people in your situation, Patricia, only have to pay £100 or £80. That is how this notion works.
I mean, that's the point, Patricia, is that those who can afford less pay less. Those who can afford more pay more. Does that sound attractive? When I explain it that way, is that something you could get behind?
That sounds attractive, but how do they work it out?
Well, that's the fine detail. Yeah. But the principle there is one that Patricia can get behind, Dawn.
The devil's always in the detail with this stuff, isn't it? I mean, everything. I'm thinking about it, I think hybrid licence fees. So you're talking about the stuff that Patricia finds important, the news, and the stuff that shouldn't be influenced by advertising and things like that. And some kind of paywall. So if you wanted the fancier stuff, you paid for it. But there was a basic BBC service for a basic licence fee that people could pay if they wanted to.
OK.
How's that sound? That makes sense.
But what about the so the opt-ins would be what? Wimbledon, FA Cup final.
Well,
Patricia, if she's on a low income, might not be able to see all the great sport or some of the fantastic drama. This city is ours. Great drama out of Liverpool.
I mean,
would Patricia be able to afford that?
We're talking about universality, right? Yeah. We're talking about something that we can all share once we've achieved this threshold of paying the licence fee. Yeah. The moments that we share together. You've got to admit that we are facing like a broken society in many ways. If we've got the power to make it cohere, to come together, doesn't that make a lot of sense?
But the BBC doesn't really do that at the moment, though, does it?
Well, if you're being hardcore political about it, I mean, people on the left attack it, people on the right attack it, which usually means they're broadly offending people and about the same rate they're doing something right.
So I'm paying for something that's offending people?
Well, no, it's not. But the thing is, people get very political about it. They like the BBC when it agrees with their point of view, and they don't when they think, oh, well, they're being too pro this or pro that. OK,
we have to leave it there. Anyway, it's going to be fascinating to see when there are changes to the BBC exactly what they look like. Don't forget later...